Dr. Thokozani Mhlambi is a composer, cultural thinker, and a cellist. He has lectured in music, performed and done workshops in places like Brazil, Finland, Canada, and Zimbabwe. And he joins us now in studio to chat about his recent project titled Zulu Love Cycle, plus a performance of his single Tribute to Nsikana. So if you've got any questions for Dr. Thokozani, please head over to our social media platforms using the hashtag Afternoon Express. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. I'm wondering if there's anything else that's nice that you're going to say about me.
Oh, well, I'm not going to stop ever because, no, you are just so beautifully talented and you've got such a raw, gorgeous sound to your music. Now, why the cello? Where did you fall in love with the cello? I first saw in a James Bond movie and I was like, oh, that's a mean instrument.
Yeah, I think we all have like either James Bond movie. I remember like Boys to Men when I was growing up, and then Water Runs Dry and the cello there, and I'm like, I really like the sound. Yeah. And then I was so disappointed when I started to play the cello because I discovered that, you know, the sound that I wanted in my head was not the one I could make when I was starting. So it meant I had to learn and grow into it, and that process is so long, and that by the time you actually get to that sound, you're like, yo, it was so much work, eh?
It is, but you like that work because you take a very academic approach to your music. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, well, I think I was fortunate enough that because I was exposed to music as a scholarly subject in high school and all that, when I went to university, I was able to study music formally. Yeah. And so then I was always now thinking about the formal and theoretical approach that I'm learning in school and how it interacts with my art. Yeah. But at the same time, music is not an academic exercise, you know?
Of course, it's passion, it's art.
Yeah.
You can't teach someone to be good at music, eh?
No, you can. No, you can.
Like, you've got it or you don't.
Well, you know, like the thing that, you know what they say about African people? African people are all talented in music.
That's true.
So I think for me, in my growing up and my background, I've never really seen, like, there's people who can do music and those who can't. It's always been like, everyone in my family can sing, everyone in my kasi can sing, wherever I go,
Yeah, but I want to know about your academic approach, especially when you go touring all over the place and you go and lecture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the academic approach for me helps me to transcend borders that I wouldn't otherwise reach. You know, just 2 years ago, I was in the rural outskirts of Brazil, and in some of their universities in the outskirts there, where there are a lot of Afro-Brazilians, you know. Yeah. And this is the first time they meet an African person, you know, who's singing something they consider to be an African thing. So they looked at me with those eyes like, oh, they want to know more about where they come from, what is it about Africa that they can learn from me. Yeah. And so I think for me then, that approach helps me to be able to connect with people through stories that are very African-focused, but also at the same time a contribution to all of mankind and to the world. Yeah. I think Africa is a good story to tell about ourselves to the world. Absolutely.
Now, I want to know the other story that you have to tell, the Zulu Love Cycle. What is that exactly?
It's called Zulu Song Cycle. Yeah. And song cycle is like a format was quite popular in the 19th century in Germany, with people like Schubert, who were taking their folk traditions in Germany and focusing on the lyricism of the words, and they would write songs about this in a classical format. Yeah. So I also wanted to do the same, but with African sounds and African stories and be able to put them into a classical format. And that's how Zulu Song Cycle came about.
That is amazing. Now tell us a little bit about the song that you're going to be performing later today.
I'll be playing for you guys Tribute to Nsikana, which is one of my favorite tracks at the moment. Yeah. And Tribute to Nsikana is about the 18th century Xhosa prophet, Nsikana, who kind of was struck by a bolt of lightning and then started telling people to convert to God. In the Eastern Cape. And then one of the things Nsikana had was a piece of iron that he would beat like that to tell his people to come forward to him. And that became known as Insimbi Nsikana. Yeah. And that legend is still known about in the Eastern Cape today, and there's a lot of folk songs, a lot of folk stories that are about Insimbi Nsikana.
I think that's one of my favorite part about your music, I think, is your ability to combine history and heritage in music. Yeah. Because I think, you know, there's so much African mythology, I suppose, that people don't really know about. So if they can hear about it in your music, it's just going to be so many beautiful lessons learned.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something that our great leading intellectual in South Africa, Professor Ntongela Masilela,
yeah.
says we need another locus of myth-making in South Africa and in Africa.
Yeah.
Because whether you're looking at Lord of the Rings, whether you're looking at all these great stories that you see from European civilizations, those are all based on myths, based on folk stories, folk songs and folk traditions. But the way they're packaged for us today, we don't see them as that. We see them as just like Hollywood and lights. But actually, they're very folk things. They have to do with the people, the land, all these things that we are concerned about as African people, which make us also part of a greater world story.
Totally. Like now, just you telling me about Nsikana.
Yeah?
I want to know, I want to watch that movie. It's a great story. But first, I'm going to hear the song before the movie gets made. Thank you so much for being here today. You've had such a joy. And thank you so much for bringing us the music.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thokozani is just so multi-layered and so rich with texture. It's so interesting to see how he combines the simplistic pureness of his music and how the two come together. Simply magical. Now, we've asked you on social media if you've got any questions for Dr. Thokozani, and we've got Usihle September who asked, my question for him is, how does he cope being a musician and a doctor on the other side? Because it seems that both you have your hands full. How does he manage his diary?
I use my spare time very carefully. You know, I must say that even though it looks like I've got this big life, I keep my life very simple, and the things that I value in my life, my family, my friends, my spiritual cultivation, my ability to also be able to read intellectual work and read activist literature is all the things that matter to me. And they inform each other. So whenever I'm starting to make music only, I always feel like, okay, cool, I need a crutch. I need to read something to be able to have that creative energy.